Hey, you guys, it's Candy. She shed where it's freezing here at the Bible study place. But I did want to pop on here for just a little bit. Been a lot going on, so not like a whole real video today, but about the book of Job. Job, I never knew this. Some of you probably knew this, and I thought I would share it because it's exciting to me. So I started studying on Job. I hesitated with Job for a while because it's just like one of those books that, you really can't really quite altogether make a whole lot of sense to the point that it comes to not that you ever completely get it all done, but you always are left with more questions than I was always left with more questions than answers. And, the age-old question that everybody asks whenever they're suffering and they feel like it's unjust and, what did I do to deserve this kind of thing and why? People have those questions in life. And so when you look at the book of Job, I never knew that Job was a type of Christ. So like typology, like David is a type of Christ, Joseph is a type of Christ, those kinds of things. I never knew that you should look at Job in that sense. But whenever you look at chapters 1 and chapters 2, there's, I think, 3 different sections there where it talks about how Job is so perfect and upright, and he eschewed evil, he avoided evil, and he did what was right. He was righteous, and it starts out with a narrator, and then you've got conversation, like dialogue, and then you've got things that you can look at, like it's wisdom literature, and it's earlier on. The time frame is like way back in Genesis, and whenever you get to the section in Job where God is talking to Job, he's talking about creation, and he gives God himself in the book of Job gives an account for creation that is just mind-blowing, out of this world, and almost feels like it is more in depth and richer than even the book of Genesis in the earlier chapters 1, 2, 3 in there. And so awesome. Job's suffering unjustly. He did not do anything to deserve the suffering that he was going through. So look at Christ. He did not do anything to deserve the suffering. But also, when you get to the sections where his friends are giving him all this supposedly wise counsel, they know everything and know so much. Pay attention to how that kind of correlates alongside of the Pharisees wanting to falsely accuse Jesus, and then boils and the stuff that's on Job, and how he takes on this suffering, not only the loss of his riches, think of Jesus leaving heaven and coming to earth, and then the loss of his family. Even Jesus, he had his earthly family with his disciples and such, but even at the time of his crucifixion, how they all scatter. There's just so many ways to look at the book of Job once you think of Job as a type of Christ. And we know that all the types and shadows and things that point us to Jesus, they are like the lesser. They show us how greatly we need that Savior, Jesus. And then look at the end of the book of Job whenever God is speaking to Job. And also, I was listening to someone, and they were talking about how Job has a conversation with God. God is speaking to Job, but not to the others. And that's like Jesus. He only did and said what he saw the Father do and what he heard the Father say. And so they had that intimate conversation relationship. And then in the end, Job prays for his friends, and his friends are restored. Isn't that what Jesus did for us? Oh my God, y'all, it's so good to think about the book of Job in a whole new light. And it makes way more sense to me now. It's not really about the why all this suffering. The book of Job never really answers that question. It leaves Job with a sense of, okay, I love God. He is God. I'm going to honor God. I'm going to look to God. He even says in one place, these eyes will see. I know that my Redeemer, I'm going to see him with these eyes. And You know, that is amazing to think. So there's so much. Even Job's bride, why don't you just curse God and die? And think about Christ in a whole new sense and how that it's just look at the book of Job in a whole new way. And if you already knew that, let me know in the comments. Let me know things that you know about the book of Job. And like, let's just make this thing come alive for one another. And as always, in the description, I usually include a bunch of stuff. And so I'm sorry that this video is a little bit short today. Just remember that even in our suffering, our sickness, our states that we feel like we hanging our heads low and can't hardly, he's the lifter up of our head. Jesus has already went to the cross. We are living in these days that we're in are so, feels like so unstable, yet our God is trustworthy and faithful.